Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Thought Leaders Lounge, an ongoing conversation with Family Compass. I'm your host, Chad Black, and today I'm super duper excited to be joined by Sommer Neff, who is a consultant and friend of the agency. So, hello, Sommer.
Hi, thanks for having me. It's nice to be here.
Yeah. I know, I haven't seen you in a while, so this is nice to
in person.
Get to spend a little time. I know, because we've done a lot of our chit-chatting over
I know, Zooms. I work from home, so I got dressed up for you today.
Thank you. I feel very special. I appreciate that.
No, it really is
much.
Nice to get out and see a nice, friendly face. So thanks for having me. Appreciate
Absolutely.
you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Honored.
So I know quite a bit about you, but our listeners may not. So kind of just dive into kind of sharing a little bit about your experience in the nonprofit space and what's your journey been like up to this point.
Sure. Yeah. So I guess I have to start back into just college and my major and how it brought me into just social work and the nonprofit world. And I didn't start off as a social worker. I was a voice major, actually. So I was a music major in college for a good year.
Okay. Now
so I gave it a go. Yes,
How
I gave
exciting.
it a go. And, music just stopped being fun. And I was like, well, if I'm going to do something, what do I want to do? So I literally just looked through the pages of the catalog and I was like, what major catches my attention? I know. It's just
I love it.
Very freshman, know. And I was just very caught by social work and this idea of social justice and just helping people.
Right.
And so I, from there, got my bachelor's in social work, and then I interned at the district attorney's office in downtown Dallas.
Wow. Bet you saw some.
I did. So I was a survivor advocate and worked with survivors and wrote protective orders.
Wow.
And that was an internship, my first foray into that. And then I got a part-time job and then was a legal advocate for a while at New Beginning Center, now New Beginning Center Hope Store. Shout out. They're amazing.
I know. Yes, they are. They're very good.
And worked with all therapists. I was the only social worker. I worked with all therapists, and hands down, it was one of the best environments I've ever been in for a good reason. Therapists know how to communicate.
Right.
Learned a lot, and then joined the Peace Corps for a couple of years and did that and learned a different language and humbled myself and did that for 2 years. And also like to say I was a glorified babysitter because in Niger, where I was in Africa, there was an average of 7 children to each woman. And so I would just sit and talk with women and talk about health and help watch their kids and just have some sort of cross-cultural exchange with them.
Yeah. What a great experience, though.
It was great. It was really hard. We lived out in the bush, no running water, no electricity. Definitely was not glamorous. And at the same time, I'm so glad I did it. But yeah, it was really hard, but the people were amazing. And I learned a lot about them, myself, learned about different cultures, and learned I could do a lot, learning a different language and just being thrown into a different environment. You just learn resilience. Right. So
you'll never forget it either.
I will never forget it. It will
always be with you.
It's so true.
Yeah.
6 days after my 2-year stint, my plane landed and I started grad school. So I hadn't spoken complete English for 2 years, and I don't know what overtook me, but I applied to grad school from there. And I did my master's in social work and leadership and community development because I've always had an affinity towards community, involved community organizing, program design, sort of more meso macro parts of social work. And through that, I was able to transition into more leadership roles when I moved back to Dallas.
Gotcha.
And, ran some programming, was at Wings for a while. I was a domestic violence shelter director, and really everything changed when I had kids. So
as it does, of course. Yeah.
So, but along the way, through each part of my life and each job I've held, I've learned so much. And so kind of reflecting, this is a really great reflection exercise because I have reflected and have done a lot. So it's I've just learned so much through my experiences. Right. But I wasn't the same person after having kids. And I had really great mentors and colleagues in my life. And one in particular who was like, well, why don't you just try contracting and see what happens? And I was like, oh my gosh, I was running a small business program at the time. And I was like, I know what goes into it. Like,
I can do this.
Yeah, but like, it's scary. I'm such a perfectionist. I was like, what if I fail? You know, there are all these like, what if? And she's like, Summer, you can always go back to work. Like, there's always going to be a job for you. And
Always.
I was like,
always.
Gosh, that's true. So 5 years later, here I am, took a leap and had amazing support. Like I said, I've had mentors, I've had colleagues who've really supported me, friends, my husband, like, who helped me like create something. You know, I could not have done it without him and his support. And just people really, even just nonprofits, like giving me a chance, who was starting from, you know, day one, like with somebody who didn't really have a lot of business experience at first. So, but yeah, it's grown. I think what I like to say is the value add that I have is unlike maybe some grant writers, you know, I haven't always been in fundraising. So I have a programs background, and that really is, I think, the shingle that I want to hang is, you know, if a nonprofit really needs help with, you know, their program design, if they're wanting to bring their impact to a different level, all of those things I think are things that I like to kind of add to what they're doing, what their goals are. So,
you know, something that here's what I think is so great about your background, though, is that you've seen the other side. Because you're right, grant making is part of the fundraising initiative. Yeah. It's part of development. Yeah. But I think coming to it with the experience that you've had and the things that you've seen, I think probably adds a great deal of depth to what you're able to write about. Because a lot of people may not realize this, you know, grant writing, it's storytelling. You're having to tell the story of an agency in different ways. And
absolutely,
I think that's incredible. So,
yeah.
Well, we've worked with you.
Yes.
You were quite instrumental in helping us during a transitional period, and it helped us tremendously. So
wonderful.
So plug, people. I'm telling you, she's great. Her team's great.
Feelings mutual.
Great experience. So we love that.
Oh, thank you.
So I know you've probably worked on a lot of different projects in the past 5 years. What are some that stand out that are really impactful to you?
That's a really good question.
Not that they all aren't impactful.
Right, I know. Well, Family Gateway for sure. Oh, it's hard to pick, honestly. I think what I found has been the most fulfilling for me would probably be organizations that have like equity at their core, gender equity specifically. That's a huge I have the experience, you know, with it, and it's a huge just passion of mine. And so those have always been ones I really love. I love working with organizations. It's not hard to find, like women and girls are in lots of programming. But you know, like if we lift women up, I truly believe like we make the world better. And so those have always been, you know, my favorite.
The ones that stand out a little bit.
Yeah.
So this is probably a loaded question, but what's a day in the life like for you?
Oh my gosh.
with all the things, right?
Can I talk about personally what I do too?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So if I don't move, like I'm not my best self. So I make it a point. I try to at least 3 times a week, if not almost every day, to do some sort of movement, some sort of exercise. Yoga has been really, really instrumental in my self-care. That's and great. Because I have a flexible job, you know, I'm my own boss. I can ask myself, hey, what can you do today? And I can work out today. Yeah. Yes. So I do try to incorporate the wellness and the like movement into my life. So that's usually like the start. And, you know, I can kind of clear my head. And then I go, you know, through emails and I work through my grant processes with clients. The first parts of the month are usually really busy because I'm meeting with every client and kind of strategizing about the next month or two. So I always say like part of my strategy is that I'm very research focused, very research heavy. I'm not going to be like the churn and burn, you know, type grant writer that's going to churn all those grants out. So I think helping. That helps a lot with nonprofits who might, need to be watchful of their resources. So I'm very strategic about our pipelines. And so it's just working through those. I think now I have a full team. I have 7 team members. So it's not just me. I know it's crazy. So a lot of it now is like managing, what they're doing and touching base with them. And that has been, I think, the most eye-opening thing is that it started out as me and now it's not just me. Like it's this whole team and they're amazing. So
but kudos to you, because that shows how great that growth has been for y'all, because I mean, to start just you and then now the team that you have is incredible.
Thank you. Yeah.
Major kudos.
It's great. And I have amazing team members. Like I could not do this alone. And they make it possible to grow and to, help as many nonprofits as we can. So.
Keep moving forward. I love that. Now for a message from Sommer, Neff Consulting, also known as SNC. For over 5 years, SNC has been designing impactful and sustainable nonprofit programs, building strong and effective teams, and writing grants that help programs thrive. SNC strives to offer the highest quality of strategic consulting services to nonprofit organizations. Our services will add the most value for nonprofits, providing equitable access to healthcare and basic social services, advocacy organizations focused on coalition building, community empowerment, and systemic change, organizations advocating for gender equity, women, girls, LGBTQ+, and supporting survivors of abuse. Visit sommerneffconsulting.com to get started. You've shared a lot of really great things. A question that I just have just kind of naturally is, I'm sure somewhere in your work over the years, some challenges have probably come up in different ways. What sort of inspires you to charge through those challenges and keep your eye on the prize a little bit?
Yes, there have definitely been challenges. I think I tried it for any challenge I've had. I really try, this is going to sound, cliche, but I do try to look at it as like, what have I learned from this? Yeah. And how can I move forward with, what I've learned from any challenge? And so whether that's like, figuring out where I add the most value to clients, like not every client is going to be fit. I'm not going to be fit for every client. So really figuring that out, figuring out how to like cultivate culture and team as we've grown. I think that has been a challenge and continues to be. And so working through that and, doing that right now. So I really am trying to learn from each challenge and move forward and grow from it at the end of the day.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's
and
great.
Also I think partly there's challenges with like how to grow.
Yes.
Yeah,
sure.
because
I see that.
like to be a boutique. And at the same time, it's so hard not to want to, grow,
just blow up, right?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
So it has been, that's my new challenge, I think, is like, how do I grow, but also maintain the boutique level of services that I have? So.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that's great. So what's the future look like for you and for Sommer Neff Consulting?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I mean, I think that what we talked about, which is, figuring out what value I can give to organizations, messaging that appropriately, and getting that best fit and growing, but also being sustainable. I think that is sort of next phase. And it's a challenge. Like it's a balance. And I think every business owner, if they're listening, like knows that challenge, because at the end of the day, the buck stops at you. So I have that choice, but sometimes it's like, it doesn't feel always like a choice, but because it can grow a little bit without you, even though you're the, the leader. So
it's not necessarily a bad thing.
It's not necessarily a bad thing.
It's hard. I know. I would have a hard time kind of letting some of that go, but
it is. It's hard. So the challenge is, like figuring out where to outsource, where to let go, not being stretched so thin. So I'm not being as effective.
Right.
And like just helping as many nonprofits as we can, like at the end of the day. So,
there you go.
yeah.
That about sums it up. I
Yeah,
think.
it about sums it up. Yep.
That's great. Well, again, thank you for being here today. And
yes, of course.
Thank you so much for supporting Family Compass and being such a wonderful asset and ally with us. We really appreciate it so much.
Yeah. And just, I want to, if I can, just ask you a question.
Yeah.
What has been your, like, if you were going to say, like, what you take away from, like, working with a consultant or specifically a grant writer, like, what is it that, like, you look for as a nonprofit, like, when you're looking to partner?
I mean, I think I can't speak for everyone, but for me personally, I love collaboration.
Yeah.
And I love when, specifically like in this situation, maybe bringing on someone who doesn't really know that much about us and their willingness to learn and to be open to us and to try to find a way to work together to make the work that we're doing, to make it click, to make it work so we can move forward together. I dig that.
Yeah.
That I think is when my best work is done. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
So, and I felt that with you. I felt like you really listened to me and said, okay, what is it that you need? What are we trying to accomplish? And you worked it out. You and your team worked it out to where we were able to do that. So I really appreciate that a lot.
Thank you. Yeah, great. I agree. I had a great experience with Family Gateway. So thanks for having me.
And you're a friend and you're here today and it's great.
Well, it's good to be here.
Thank you. Thank you again for coming. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
And as always, we like to send everyone out with a quote to take with you into the world. And today's quote is by the late, great Walt Disney. He said, "All our dreams can come true if we have the courage to pursue them." Thanks for joining us for this episode of Thought Leaders Lounge. Subscribe to our show on Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. That way you don't miss any of our upcoming episodes. Find the latest agency updates on social media. We're on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram, all at Family Compass. See you next time.